what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets trailing, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, just that star-spangled banner, yeah, wave for the land under the frame, and the home of the brave.
Don't be afraid, this is a low fat, and you are listening to HonestAnswerRadio.com. Now, where's the egg roll you guys promised me?
The views and opinions expressed on the Honest Answer Radio show are the opinions of Honest Answer Media and no one else. If you're hearing a syndicated broadcast of this show, don't hold it against the broadcaster. Rather, congratulate them on their openness, tolerance, and respect for the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Until there are no longer first class, second class citizens of any nation. Until the color of man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes. Everywhere is war. War. Everywhere is war.
Killing a brother,
War.
destroying the country,
War.
for nothing,
War.
for nothing. They don't take care of another brother. We don't need no more war.
Some winning, some losing, some dying, some crying, some singing. We don't need no more trouble. We don't need no more trouble. We don't need no more trouble. We don't need no more trouble.
Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. One more time. Get on in here. Honest Answer Radio here on HonestAnswerRadio.com, where we're kicking the mainstream media in the teeth every chance we get. If this is going to be your first time listening to the show, well, I'm going to be the Marty half of your dynamic hosting duo this evening.
And I'm going to be the Casey half. And man, you know, it does seem, I know I put this out on Facebook, but it seems like this Obama administration and the government in general seems to forget that it's 2014 and that people really don't depend on network news cycles anymore to get updates. They're still stuck in trying to hide things by releasing them out on a Friday. Like this, you know, they forgot and about, you know, oh, sorry, we lost those IRS emails and everything. But on Monday, they want to crow about catching somebody that attacked the embassy in Benghazi. One dude.
one guy out of the
Hundreds.
that attacked, but they got one, and even though they could have got him like 6-9 months ago,
Even longer, dude.
yeah. But we'll get into that. This has been one of those weekends. Like Casey said, it started out Friday, where they start dropping the bombs, and then by Monday, there's something to cover up what they did Friday. This administration, man,
They think y'all are all idiots.
and they think we are all idiots because they think me and you's just as stupid as they do everybody else.
Well, I figured everybody took that for granted.
I mean,
No.
well, you can't say they think y'all stupid and not put yourself in there because they think you're pretty dumb too. I talked to them just last week, and they said, that Casey guy.
He's
I think
ignorant.
we could pull one over on him. He kind of stupid. But man, it's breaking off in Iraq again, and from what I'm understanding, El Jefe is sending some of those, what they call them, boots on the ground.
No, because there wasn't going to be no boots on the ground, man. He wasn't going to do that.
Well,
They're wearing slippers.
he's sending hundreds, not like thousands of troops. He's sending hundreds there. He wants to secure the embassy. And
But he's making them all wear flip-flops so they don't have to have boots
so they don't
on
have
them.
no boots. Well, hey, it wouldn't shock me with this president. He's also going to have some Marines stationed outside of Iraq. I think they're going to put some in Amman, Jordan, forward station troops, just in case, they need them for something.
Right.
There's all
But
kind
hey-
of opinions on that.
But, hey, man, I don't even know why we're worried about this. John Kerry's got it under control. Look, this thing in Iraq, it must be small potatoes because, today John Kerry took time out of his day as Secretary of State to get with Leonardo DiCaprio on Twitter and do a little Q&A on, the trouble that our oceans are in, the environment.
Wait. Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm deadly.
John
yeah.
Kerry,
Yeah, our Secretary of State.
Secretary of State,
Yeah.
got on Twitter
For an hour.
for an hour
Yes.
with Leo DiCaprio
Yeah. Mr. Titanic.
to talk about the oceans and environmental things. I'm guessing climate change, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just made my head hurt, man.
So I mean, I don't even know why we're even talking about this. It's just so we'll have something to fill up our airtime with, folks.
Oh,
But y'all
man.
can just relax because, if you're wondering, this is nuance. This is nuance in action.
If
right
by
there.
nuance you mean something that you can step in a cow pasture, I'll buy that. Because
Yeah.
that's exactly what I think it is. We was talking about they've made that arrest over there. Now, we made the arrest. Wasn't the arrest made in Libya?
Yeah.
And they made it at a coffee house or something, wasn't it?
I think so.
Something like that. I know they used the special forces to get to the guy and capture him. But from what I'm understanding, they could have just used somebody from the New York Times to get the guy because he's been holding court with reporters for
Long time
ages,
now, yeah.
man. Been on TV over there, just chilling.
Yeah, he's just been chilling.
Well, why? I mean, I'm sure that they've already explained to somebody, but maybe you can help me. Why haven't we already arrested him?
Well, see,
And
for
arrest
that,
is a harsh word.
actually, see, you've
I
got
don't even
all
wanna
the
say
answers.
arrest.
You've got all the answers you need in the audio clip that you've got. Jen Psaki.
I listened to that audio as I
You
recorded
didn't
it.
you didn't find her answer satisfactory,
All right, well,
Marty?
look, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me, and maybe, you know, sometimes, like, if you read a book more than once, you know, you like when I read the Bible, I always find something new in it that I didn't know before.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if we listen to this, to the State Department give their explanation again, maybe I'll get it then, okay?
Well, maybe it'll soak in. I mean,
Because I do have, you're right about me having an audio clip. I've got James Rosen talking to Jen Psaki. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
In response to Matt's questioning, you stated, I'm paraphrasing but faithfully, that we should not be surprised that a suspected terrorist might more readily agree to show up for an interview with a reporter than he or she would for a scheduled meeting with the U.S. Special Forces. And respectfully, I submit to you that that is not properly framing the question, as no one would expect a terrorist to show up for a scheduled meeting with the U.S. Special Forces. The question being put to you, it seems to me, is why U.S. Special Forces couldn't have an unscheduled meeting with this individual in a period of time less than, as you put it, just a few years.
Well, James, with all due respect, I would say there are reasons why individuals, including terrorists, meet with reporters to gain more attention for their issues or their agenda. That is entirely different from any operation to take these individuals into custody. And there are a range of factors taken into account. Where we are today is that this individual, with the support and leadership of the military, the Justice Department, a range of officials in the interagency, has been apprehended. And that is an important step forward in our view.
So I guess the question, following your own logic, the next question to be propounded to you is, why didn't we pose as a reporter to capture him then?
Well, we appreciate your view. If you're volunteering yourself for future endeavors, we'll take that into account.
In other words, you're still not addressing the central question, Jen. You're not answering the question of why a reporter was able to get within 6 inches of this guy and U.S. Special Forces weren't for more than 2 years. What is the answer to that?
Well, the answer, James, is that reporters have interviewed a range of terrorists in the past. There's nothing new about that. They have their own desire to get their story heard, their agenda heard. That's entirely different from taking the steps necessary to apprehend someone in a country, a third country, a second, not the United States, as has happened in this case. We did it as expeditiously as possible, took into account a range of factors, and where we are today is that the outcome was successful.
Did you say that the most recent...
Okay, I was so wrong, because I listened to it again, and I still...
It was a range of factors, Marty. Look,
and
number
they
one.
did it as expeditiously as possible. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm just wanting too much out of these
First
people.
off, before I go any further, let's just say that I promise y'all that it's not the fault of the Special Forces that they didn't get their hands on this guy. Because believe me, I think the Delta Force or the Navy SEALs, the Green Berets, or Boy Scouts could have gone in there and laid hands on the dude before now. But part
Rosen
of the
asks a good question. I mean, you're telling me, I mean, she's essentially saying that our Special Forces couldn't have posed as a reporter and got this guy. Man, they could have done a dead-in-the-night snatch and grab and brought this guy back. That range of factors she's talking about.
Yeah, I know. I know what those factors are.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, okay. Number one, the VA scandal blew up. Number two, the Bo Bergdahl scandal blew up. Number three, they lost some, quote unquote, lost some emails in the IRS scandal
That have been subpoenaed.
And number two, their water carrier that was over in the Republican Party, Eric Cantor, who was sort of soft and squishy on immigration, he lost his election. You've got that range of factors
that is a
right
range
there.
Of factors there. That's
Now
wait. Now I know that sometimes people have accused us of being a little bit cynical. But are you suggesting to me that they've been, since they knew where this guy was all along, that the Obama administration would have held off on going to get this guy until they needed a suitable distraction to get people's minds off of, well, more than one scandal?
I tell you what.
Like they were just keeping him as their ace in the hole?
I would say that would probably, when you consider that our special forces, I mean, look, dude, like I said, our Boy Scouts could have gone in there because the guy was not hiding.
But that's just darned unethical. And you are suggesting right here in front of everybody that the Obama administration, the most transparent administration in our nation's history, would use something like the arrest of an individual that was responsible for one of the biggest security debacles in our nation's history for, a smoke screen? Is that what you're implying?
Yes.
Well, I think
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. This man, I tell you what,
Because I don't like being this cynical. I mean, I know. Do you like being this cynical?
well, yeah, I kind of like it a little bit. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
it's sort of who I am, but
But I hate being right about my cynicism.
yeah, and I hate being right about these things as often as we are, because me and you, let's face it, we're just a couple of good old boys from Alabama. We ain't used to being, correct on matters of international intrigue.
I mean, look, you're a married man. You're not used to being right about anything.
Well, you got me there. Yeah.
So,
that's true.
I mean,
But you got to be kidding me, man. Now, every American at home right now that's watching this stuff, go by on the news, ought to be fuming.
well, judging by what I've seen on Facebook and Twitter today, there are a whole lot of people who are just ordinary, down here in the South, we don't really have that many soccer moms. We got softball and baseball moms,
Yeah, from what I'm seeing
this time
on
of year.
social media, I tell you what, man.
Yeah, people are fuming.
And might I add, people, that this is brought to you care of the Democrat Party of the United States of America. This sits squarely on their shoulders. Remember this come November. I mean, to have had eyes on a guy that was responsible for the death of a sitting U.S. ambassador, and for them not to have acted on it. Psaki says that they did this as expeditiously as possible. What a crock. What
Yeah.
a crock. I mean, after all, why would they, this arrest shouldn't have even really, it really never should have happened, seeing as how this whole thing was based on a spontaneous protest about a video that said bad things about Muslims. I mean, this guy apparently was just exercising his right as a human being to protest against something horrible and vile like that video, because it inflamed the entire Muslim community. I mean, we really couldn't blame the guy for being upset. So, I don't know. I know that Benghazi is not exactly being the up under the rugs sweeper that they wanted it to be.
Yeah, see, the narrative doesn't play outside the Beltway like they think it does inside the Beltway. I mean, because have you noticed that only people in Washington or inside of television studios in New York City or in the press rooms of like the LA Times, for instance, if you want to switch over there to the other coast, they're the only people that buy the narrative. The rest of the country, and that's a whole lot of people, by the way, y'all. It's more than 4.
I just don't think that even those, I really don't believe that those water carriers are buying it at all.
Well, the water carriers don't, but see, they think, because they're trapped inside that Beltway bubble, they think that those of us out here in flyover country will just buy it just because they say it.
Well, you know what, man? You can't blame them for thinking that, because for decades now, that is exactly what has been happening.
Yeah.
And even up and, maybe up until the last couple of months at best, that is precisely what's been happening. Joe Blow, city employee, and little Mary Jane's soccer mom have been coming home every evening, turning on the TV, and watching NBC and CBS, ABC, CNN. They've been telling lie after lie after lie, covering up for this administration, sweeping everything up under the rug, and people have bought it hook, line, and sinker all along. And now the ball of yarn is starting to become, frayed, and the little strings are starting to come loose. People are pulling on string after string after string, and it's starting to become undone. And this little idea that, this was all done because of a video. I was watching Hillary Clinton on Fox. She's doing an interview on Fox right now as we speak. Before we went on the air, I was listening to her. And even then, she is still, in some way, sympathizing with the Muslim community over that stinking video. She still won't let go of that narrative that this came about from that video that only 3 people watched.
Right. Well, that fall she took might have scrambled her brains a little bit. But the thing is there are people, and you and I know some, out there who are die-hard Hillary supporters.
Yeah, and if she's saying it, they're buying it. Right after this happened, we were talking about the video and the absurdity of it, and we were talking about how angry we were that Hillary Clinton and the president were sympathizing with the, over-sympathizing with the Muslim community over this video.
Yeah, you remember the future does not belong to those who would slander the prophet. Remember that?
Man, look, Tina and I had people stop speaking to us because of that.
Yep.
And you know what? That sort of brings me around to this next audio clip I got, because it still ties into Benghazi. The Heritage Foundation had this panel on Benghazi. We are not letting go of it, Democrats, no matter how much you want us to. And it's because of things like what you just saw today with this guy, one person being arrested that could have been arrested 2 years ago.
Or preferably, my preference would have been, we just arranged a meeting between him and Allah.
Well, either way.
But either way, he's
the
arrested.
The Heritage Foundation's got this panel. And this little girl stands up in the back. They're doing a Q&A session. And she's, I'm a Muslim law student, and I'm a peaceful Muslim, and you keep talking about the evil Muslims, and there's more good than there are bad, and why are you still talking? You know what? I'm going to let you just listen to this. But now I had to edit this down for time, and I took out the person that immediately answered her question, because he was being just a little too politically correct, even for the Heritage Foundation. But the woman that answers this question, just listen for the boom. You're about to hear it.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace to you all. My name is Saba Ahmed. I'm a law student at American University. I am here to ask you a simple question. I know that we portray Islam and all Muslims as bad. But there's 1.8 billion Muslim followers of Islam. We have 8 million plus Muslim Americans in this country, and I don't see them represented here. But my question is, how can we fight an ideological war with weapons? How can we ever end this war? The jihadist ideology that you talk about, it's an ideology. How can you ever win this thing if you don't address it ideologically?
Great question. I am so glad you're here, and I am so glad you brought that up because it gives us an opportunity to answer. What I find so amazing is since the beginning of this panel, which we are here about Benghazi attack against our people, not one person mentioned Muslims. We are here against Islam, or we're launching war against Muslims. We are here to discuss how 4 Americans died and what our government is doing. We were not here to bash Muslims. You were the one who brought up the issue about most Muslims, not us. And since you brought it up, allow me to elaborate with my answer. There are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Of course, not all of them are radicals. The majority of them are peaceful people. The radicals are estimated to be between 15 to 25%, according to all intelligence services around the world. That leaves 75% of them peaceful people. But when you look at 15 to 25% of the world Muslim population, you're looking at 180 million to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. That is as big of the United States. So why should we worry about the radicals, 15 to 25%? Because it is the radicals that kill. Because it is the radicals that behead and massacre. When you look throughout history, when you look at all the lessons of history, most Germans were peaceful. Yet the Nazis drove the agenda. And as a result, 60 million people died. Almost 14 million in concentration camps. 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Russia, most Russians were peaceful as well. Yet the Russians were able to kill 20 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at China, for example, most Chinese were peaceful as well. Yet the Chinese were able to kill 70 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Japan prior to World War II, most Japanese were peaceful as well. Yet Japan was able to butcher its way across Southeast Asia, killing 12 million people, mostly killed with bayonets and shovels. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. On September 11th in the United States, we had 2.3 million Arab Muslims living in the United States. It took 19 hijackers, 19 radicals to bring America down to its knees, destroy the World Trade Center, attack the Pentagon, and kill almost 3,000 Americans that day. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. So for all our powers of reasons and us talking about moderate and peaceful Muslims, I'm glad you're here. But where are the others speaking out? And since you are the only Muslim representative, save the applause till the end.
You can't see this, but this is called a standing ovation.
Thank you. Thank you. And since you're the only Muslim representative in here, you took the limelight instead of speaking about why our government, and I assume, are you an American? You're an American citizen. So as an American citizen, you sat in this room and instead of standing up and saying a question or asking something about our 4 Americans that died and what our government is doing to correct the problem, you stood there to make a point about peaceful, moderate Muslims. I wish you brought 10 with you to question about how we can hold our government responsible. It is time we take political correctness and throw it in the garbage where it belongs and stop calling it.
I think everyone agrees that it can't be won just militarily, and I think that everyone has said that. You tell me who the head of the Muslim peace movement is?
I guess it's me right now, so thank you.
That was one of the most incredible takedowns of political correctness I've heard in a long, long time.
Well, you know, I have just a little small anecdote here. You know, when on September 11th, 2001, I was working in Memphis. And we had in my department, in the laboratory where I was working, we had a fellow who was a Muslim, one of the quote-unquote peaceful Muslims. You know, in the day it happened and in the days and weeks following, when the discussion of the terrorist came up, that quote-unquote peaceful Muslim kept trying to somehow justify why the terrorists were angry enough with the United States to come and kill people. Also, there was another lady that I worked with who was not. She was an American citizen, I think, or working towards becoming an American citizen. No. As a matter of fact, she said she would never. Now that I remember, she didn't want to become an American citizen. She was from South Africa, and she was living here and tried to justify some of the Muslim anger. She wasn't even Muslim.
That's been what the quote unquote peaceful moderate Muslims. That has been their MO ever since they became, I hate to call them a talking point, but ever since 9/11 happened, the first 9/11, they've spent the vast majority of their time trying to explain to us, as if we didn't know, that the majority of Muslims are peaceful. But exactly what have they done to police themselves and try to overcome? Look, we've got crazies in the Christians.
Look, man.
Timothy McVeigh claimed to be a Christian, and he set off one of the biggest domestic terrorist incidents in this nation's history.
And look, during the Spanish Inquisition, it was a handful of Christians who were killing people left and right, most of them Jews. Okay.
But see, now we're locked in this political correctness to where you can't speak about the radical Muslims.
Well, it's okay to speak about the radical Christians, though.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But when you start talking about, the radical wing of Islam, that's when these quote-unquote peace-loving Muslims get all offended and butthurt about it. And they want to remind us that, we're not all that way. Yeah, look, I know. And I try to explain to people all the time that we Christians, we're not all like the way we're portrayed either. But we do a heck of a lot better job of squelching the crazy Christians.
Well, do you remember, now this is just another little anecdote. You remember when you and I worked out at the super speedway?
Yeah.
We worked for a fellow who talked just like Bill Clinton, sounded just like Bill Clinton. And you remember when we would have the meetings where he was chewing somebody's butt, but he had all of us together. But he would really only be talking to maybe one or two people.
Yeah.
Remember what he used to say? If this don't apply to y'all, just let it go in one ear and out the other. The people I'm talking to know who they are. And he would go on and launch into the butt chewing. Okay? So if you're one of those peaceful Muslims, when we start talking about the radicals, let it go in one ear and out the other. If it don't apply to you, then it don't apply to you.
But it doesn't take. See, that this lady makes a great point. Sure, there are more peace lovers than there are the radicals. But the moderate peace lovers are becoming irrelevant today. Just like they did in Nazi Germany, just like they did in Russia, just like they did in China.
Just like they did in Cambodia.
And just like that woman said, they did on September the 11th, 2001. It only took 19 of those radicals. And I'm sorry that people really want us to let go of what happened in Benghazi And they really want us to tell the Muslim community how sorry we were that they got so enraged on that day, but it ain't going to happen. You know, Casey and I think I can speak for both of us when I say we are getting pretty darn tired of saying the words, I told you this was going to happen. I told you so. I'm getting really bored with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because we don't like it.
No, just like this Iraq thing. We told you a long time ago, if we fall asleep on Iraq, bad things are going to happen. When they were doing this big troop withdrawal, we're going to bring the troops home. We've lost our stomach for war in this country. We said, just like we were talking about Thursday night, that power vacuum is something that you're not going to be able to get around.
No, it will be filled.
And, you know, I'm glad to know that we're not alone. Last night, Glenn Beck had a big I told you so. You know what's happening in Iraq and Syria right now? You know what they're forming? The caliphate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Glenn Beck's been screaming for years, man, for years, that the end game for these radicals is that the caliphate would be formed.
Oh, Marty, that's just for those conspiracy theories.
There would be an Islamic state.
Nuts.
I know, but that there would be an Islamic state based on Sharia law, complete with beheadings and torture and everything. And they said that's just a bunch of conspiracy bull. Chris Matthews said it was Looney Tunes. I want you to listen to this little bit from Beck here. I got 2 clips from Beck tonight, and this is one of them. You know, like I said, me and Casey are getting really bored with telling people, I told you this was going to happen. I told you, and you didn't listen. It always takes something really horrendous for people to snap out of it and wake up. And this ISIS, what's going on in Iraq and Syria right now, it hadn't even got started yet. And we're already at the I told you it was going to happen. But it hadn't even really got good and started yet. Listen to this.
Of them, or they'll conquer you. They'll kill you. CNN reported this idea of the caliphate, that it's gaining popularity now around the world in the Middle East. Watch this.
When we talk about this caliphate, this sort of great land without borders, if you like, that al-Baghdadi wants, and he mentions the Levant. Give us a sense of this caliphate and how it might appeal to many Islamists.
Well, the caliphate was the political entity set up after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and it's essentially the political entity that includes all Muslims wherever they are.
The New York Times, in fact, posted a background video on ISIS, labeling them, the New York Times, the group that's building a caliphate. I mean, it's good to see that they are now taking radical jihadists who talk about a caliphate seriously, because I seem to recall when a certain someone brought this up, it was, this is what they said. Here's what I said first.
When I say that there's a caliphate, it is a desire of the Islamic extremists in the Middle East. That's not a conspiracy theory, and I will stand on this one. I don't know if a caliphate actually happens. I can't tell you when, where, or how. I can just tell you I am good at sensing movements. I am good at seeing over the horizon and see the movement and the direction of things. And this is very bad.
Well, there it is. But nobody wanted to listen back in 2011.
It is not about freedom. It is not about democracy. It is about an Islamic state.
We're back. That was Glenn Beck last night on his program, warning his audience about an Islamic State takeover. This is, I do not use the term lightly, Looney Tunes.
There was an interesting split among the Glenn Beck types, really with delusional ravings about the caliphate coming back, and I would say the conservative establishment, which saw this as the fulfillment of Ronald Reagan's democracy dream.
It seemed to me, if I can jump in here, that the show got increasingly weird. It became more religious themed. There was more talk about Jews and Middle East caliphates.
Yeah, it became very weird. You know, when Paul was down in the hold of a ship, and he knew he had to go to Rome, and he was a prisoner, and nobody was listening to him, he said, don't go get in the ship. Don't get on this ship. Don't take off right now, please. There's a hurricane coming. Nobody would listen to him. Well, he got on the ship, and he told everybody, but they wouldn't listen. And he went down, and he just kind of chilled. It says later that he was talking to an angel, but he was just kind of chilling. But once the hurricane hit, once the ship was almost lost, they came down and got him and said, okay, wait. Tell us again what's happening. I'm not bringing these things up to you to say, I told you so. I think the failures of the past, of my record and everybody else's record, needs to be seen. Because if you don't know, I mean, I think you know, they will likely use any opportunity to make fun of people like you and me anytime. I want to make sure that it is very clear which network you can trust going forward, which one is operating right now, and which one is seeing over the horizon.
Now look, yeah, at some point in there, Glenn Beck said, you know, he said, I'm good at seeing what's over the horizon. I'm good at sensing these things.
Mm-hmm.
I just tell y'all, I'm not good at that. Marty's not good at that.
No.
We're not good at seeing what's coming. I'll tell you what we are good at. We're good at taking people who mean us harm at their word.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that where we do pretty well is that when somebody like Glenn Beck or Chris Matthews, it doesn't really matter who they are. When somebody makes a statement, we say to ourselves, I like this guy or I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
But we're not going to take them at their word. We're going to, and Glenn Beck is like one of the few out there who stands up and says, hey, don't take me at my word.
Right.
Go do some research. Well,
right.
when Glenn Beck says something, I mean, I guess I'm sort of a fan of Glenn Beck. I like the guy. You know, we play a lot of his clips because he's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've also played some of his clips when we said, oh, Glenn's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But at the same time, when he speaks, we don't go, oh, ditto, Glenn.
Right. No,
we
it's
go
time to go dig and research.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, it doesn't take the ability to sense the future. It doesn't take the gift of prophecy for us to be able to tell y'all, okay, this stuff is coming down the road.
No, it takes a few minutes
Yeah.
picking and pecking and looking things up for ourselves.
And sometimes, I hate to say this, folks, sometimes you actually have to get off the internet. Because Marty and I do have to get off the internet and actually open a book that has paper pages and do a little reading, okay? Sometimes, as a matter of fact, okay, all the time these days, you know, we do our research in secular library, or our own little secular library that we've got here at the house full of books. You know, and then we also open up the Bible. And if y'all don't want to hear any preaching, this isn't a sermon that I'm preaching here. But the Bible is a good history book, and it talks about how things happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, so when you combine all of that, and you just walk around the world with your eyes open and your ears open.
Some of it's pretty plain to see.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if a couple of bald-headed old rednecks down here in Alabama can see this, then the rest of y'all can. And most of our listeners actually, you know, we're preaching to the choir to a certain extent, Marty, because there's a whole lot of people that listen to our show and that download our show actually agree with us, and they agree with us not because they think we're just brilliant folks, but they've done
more and more. I am hearing from people who are listening for the first time, who are saying, you know, I didn't know about fill in the blank. So I went and looked at fill in the blank. And man, that was right. Man, that's scary. Yeah, it's scary. Some of it is scary stuff. And like, I'll echo what Casey said. We're not really great at seeing what's coming over the horizon. But when a group of people swear on their life that they are going to do us harm, and by us, I mean the United States, we're good at taking them at their word. Particularly when we turn on the news and we see where this group of people have shown their willingness to do us harm by strapping explosives onto their body, or by flying jet airliners into buildings, or by attacking a U.S. embassy and being totally willing to kill a sitting ambassador. And to this group of people that we're talking about, we see the death of Chris Stevens as something, it's monumental. I mean, this was a big deal to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care who Chris Stevens was. They didn't care that he was an ambassador. He was an American. Time to do some harm.
They didn't care about what Sean Smith's job was. He was like their IT guy.
But see, not only are they saying, we want to do you guys harm, that's not the only thing I hear out of them. We've been hearing them say they were going to create an Islamic State.
The Caliphate.
We've been hearing them say it. Look, I don't like Al Jazeera Network, okay? But I do know that Al Jazeera is huge in the Islamic community as far as, their news sources. They're huge over there. And a lot of the radicals watch Al Jazeera like we would watch Fox.
And a lot of them get interviewed by Al Jazeera, and they tell Al Jazeera exactly what they intend to do.
So here we are now. A lot of what Glenn Beck was saying years ago is coming, it's coming into being. A lot of the same stuff that Casey and I said on some of our shows that was going to happen, when we would say, pay attention, you will see this material again. Here we are with the material. It's here now. Now, these Islamic radicals are forming their state like ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria.
And the Levant. Now they got the ISIL, which is the Islamic State in Iran, and the Levant.
Yeah.
Go look up the Levant. Believe it or not, you think, the Levant. Yeah, I've read some spy novels.
That R&B singer?
That's like one little coastal town somewhere. No. It's a bigger area than you think, or it is in their mind. Okay, and why they call it the Levant when Levant is a French term?
But what are we doing? I mean, what do we do now? There's two schools of thought. Now, the president has already sent some, I said
flip-flops on the ground.
Yeah, he sent some Marines, largely Marines, to go and secure the embassy and try to keep them from getting that because, look, our U.S. Embassy, they spent $1 billion with a B. They spent $1 billion on our embassy in Baghdad. There's pretty good indication that there's some really sensitive things there in that embassy that I'll go out on a limb and say we really, really, really don't want them to get their hands on. So the president has at least taken the step to secure our embassy. But we're talking about a few hundred Marines versus, 7,000 or 8,000 really, really radical Islamists.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, to me that just seems like a fair fight. I mean, 300 Marines, 7,000 insurgents. That's a fair fight. I think they may have to go get some more insurgents, to be honest with you.
But at the same time, why throw that burden on our Marines?
Amen.
I mean,
now,
not that they can't handle themselves. Look, Marty, we have an awesome amount of faith in the people who wear our country's uniform. I don't care if they are a clerk in the Army or somebody at the Bureau of Personnel in the Navy. When it comes right down to it, we'll take folks from our armed forces over anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
But why?
But why throw the burden on them? I mean, there are two. Honestly, I'm kind of flip-flopping on this issue. Do we go back and reinvade Iraq and beef up troops, or do we try to stay out of it and let these folks kill each other off? Because it's Sunni and Shia versus each other right now.
Well, it's been that way for a couple thousand years.
I just want to go ahead and tell everybody what the risk is of sitting back and waiting for one group to kill each other off.
Well, I have the audio.
You have the audio?
Well,
let's see if
two schools of thoughts here.
Okay.
All right. This first one is coming from Bill O'Reilly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he's another one that we certainly don't agree with everything he says.
Right.
But
we at least listen.
Yeah. And we do our own research. And Bill O'Reilly he's right about a lot of things, particularly when it comes to the Middle East. But this is what he thinks.
Picture forged by the brave men and women in the U.S. military. Now the current Iraq mess. President Obama seems to understand that if al-Qaeda takes over Iraq, they can use that country as a safe haven from which to launch attacks all over the place, including on America itself.
So we have enormous interest there, and obviously our troops and the American people and the American taxpayers made huge investments and sacrifices in order to give Iraqis the opportunity to chart a better course, a better destiny. But ultimately, they're going to have to seize it. As I said before, we are not going to be able to do it for them.
And that's true. We are not going to be able to solve the internal problems of the Iraqis. That being said, I fully expect President Obama to begin bombing the al-Qaeda army very soon. If he does not do that, it would be an enormous dereliction of duty. He is the commander-in-chief. Al-Qaeda wants to kill us. So he must send a message to them and to the largely cowardly world. We will not allow savages to decimate the world. That is the message that must be sent. And let me ask all you bleeding hearts this question. What's wrong with destroying an al-Qaeda army anywhere on earth? What's wrong with that? These people want to destroy civilization. They want to impose Sharia law. Over the weekend, the al-Qaeda army murdered nearly 2,000 people, executing anyone suspected of being in the Iraqi army or police force, putting them in ditches, shooting them while they lay prone, beheading them, setting them on fire. You name it. While that was going on, President Obama was playing golf in California. Again, I expect the commander-in-chief to begin bombing the al-Qaeda army in Iraq and Syria forthwith. He's already announced a few U.S. troops will be sent to Baghdad to protect Americans there, but that's purely a defensive action. Of course, once you go on offense, you're going to get some people protesting. Some libertarians don't want any foreign involvement, and a number of far-left people simply oppose everything the USA does. A few years ago, before the U.S. pulled out of Iraq, we put this question to Jane Fonda.
What do you think might happen to the Iraqis? Are you concerned about what will happen to the Iraqis if we leave?
I'm concerned about what's happening to the Iraqis right now.
What do you think about what happened to the 3 million Vietnamese and Cambodians who died after the U.S. troops left Vietnam?
It's too bad that we caused it to happen by going in there in the first place.
That's right, Miss Fonda. We caused all the murders in Southeast Asia. Don't blame the communists. It was our fault. What a loon. Talking Points well understands that history will reflect that the United States made a mistake attacking Iraq after 9/11. It was not worth the $1 trillion spent and all the blood of our military. But again, our intent was noble. We took out a mass murderer who oppressed millions of people. Unfortunately, many of the Iraqi people did not appreciate it and are now fighting among themselves, giving advantage to al-Qaeda. But make no mistake, by attacking al-Qaeda from the air, the USA may be helping the government in Baghdad, but we are really fighting to defend ourselves.
Okay, that's Bill O'Reilly's school of thought on it. We need to go over there and just start bombing the mess out of them. And, you know, he makes good points. After listening to Bill, it sets me to the mind of, you know, he's right. These guys, they spent the weekend beheading and shooting and torturing, you know, almost 2,000 people, all right? And wiping out al-Qaeda, wherever we find them, does sound like a pretty good idea, and they are, I ain't going to say all in one nice little, you know, bundle, but we could do some serious damage to the al-Qaeda network just by taking out what's here in Iraq and Syria. But it brings us back to this is Shia and Sunni, right? These guys have been at each other's throats for a couple of thousand years. And, you know, when we handed Iraq back to the Iraqis after this last go-around, I ain't going to say we left them with a good country. But, you know, we had built schools and hospitals. We had largely rebuilt their infrastructure. And I'm not going to say that the Iraqi people weren't grateful, but a whole bunch of them, well, they weren't grateful. They didn't care. You know, they looked at it like, well, you guys came over here and bombed us. You know, the least you can do is give us some schools and whatnot. But they didn't take care of what we gave them. They might have had an election here and there and, you know, going through the motions. But they wanted us away from there, okay? That brings us to the second school of thought. And back to Beck. And Beck makes really good argument for his school of thought, too. So, let's see what he had to say.
I don't know. But I will tell you this. I won't support sending another troop over there. You cannot give freedom to people who don't understand it or don't want it. We're not the policemen of Iraq. We're not. We freed them from Saddam Hussein.
Well,
we
except
gave
we
them
are.
No, you know what? Who gave us the right to even do that?
Well, nobody, but we took it. I mean, we assumed.
Well,
we assumed that right.
Too bad.
Well, too bad though. I mean,
But
that's an
it's really hard to the veterans' families to say that.
You know what? I will tell you this.
6,500 that we've lost in this war.
You tell me that those families would rather have us send more kids to be slaughtered. Because that's exactly what you're going to send them under this guy?
I think a lot of them are saying, what was this for?
I don't know.
My son
I'm saying
died in
that.
vain.
Excuse me. I'm saying that too. And what I'm telling you is this is what it was for. Your son died for a noble cause as you and your son and most Americans understood it. I don't know what the government was doing, but it's not the same noble cause as what you thought it was and your son died for. Understand that your son, he died for something that we all believed in. But what we were told is not what the real deal is. I'm sorry. But they did not go over there and fight that to win. They didn't fight it to... It was a bloodbath.
And only when they got serious did we start to push back and win again, and then they all went all wimpy. And then we started releasing the bad guys. We had this guy in 2009. We had him in Guantanamo. Yeah. This president decided that he wasn't that big of a threat, so sent him away. He went to Syria, where he helped start this little organization that has now beheaded and killed 1,700 people just this last weekend. He's already started cutting off the limbs for theft. He's already told women that they've got to stay in their homes. This guy wasn't a threat. It's a $2 billion organization. Where did that money come from? How much of that money actually came from the coffers of the United States of America? How much of that money is maybe the money we lost? How much of the arms that they have actually came from us, from sending it over? Enough is enough. I won't send another person over to be killed, to be slaughtered, for people who don't understand freedom, don't want freedom as we understand it. It's not our business, period.
Well, okay, so just playing this out, and I understand this. This is interesting because we're hitting real world with this stuff, because we've been talking about how we don't need troops there or whatever for a long time. So now the troops aren't there, and this happens. And I know you, Glenn, as a person who would, maybe been on record a little bit about thinking the caliphate would be a threat to world security. So now you have people. We pull out of there. They've got a free path to put this thing in.
Too late.
Okay, well, so
they're coming here.
They're coming to our doorstep. They are coming here anyway. We're already letting them in over our southern border. What do you say? We say, look, the world has changed dramatically. It is time for us to pull back and strengthen ourselves, strengthen our families, strengthen our communities, strengthen our schools, strengthen our hospitals, take care of our veterans that we are spitting on. No, it's an insult to say we would spit on them. We don't even have that in us. We've made them invisible. We're treating them like they don't even exist. How many people even know we're still at war? How many people can tell us where our troops are even fighting and dying today? Pull back and strengthen the United States of America, because a storm is coming. Pull the fleet back in and reset, because a storm is coming.
Okay. Out of both of those, I didn't hear my point. And this is not a pro-invade or a con to invade Iraq. But this is what's going to happen. The Sunni and the Shia are going to fight it out. What's going to happen is that at the end, whoever comes out on top will have trained, battle-hardened troops. Now, nobody else in the country, or I'm not in the caliphate, is going to have food. Nobody else in the caliphate is going to have medicine. Nobody else in the caliphate is going to have any power. But the folks who end up in power will be battle-hardened and ruthless. So, if we pull back, if we just blow up our own embassy, which I think...
I'm pro that.
Because there are things there that we don't want to get into enemy hands. And so we should, if we blow that up, then we should do what Glenn Beck is suggesting. Get back over here, take care of our veterans who need the care right now. Strengthen our borders, close our borders down.
Well...
and say... Sure, you can come to America. These are the steps that you have to take, like the laws we already have. And, because there's a pathway to citizenship if you want to be an American citizen.
Yeah.
There already is a pathway to citizenship. Sorry, but it just takes a little bit more trouble.
Close the borders down, and y'all take these steps.
Yes.
Take the long way.
But when he says a storm is coming, see, we won't be facing the Iraqi army that we faced in 2003.
No.
We'll be facing an army of Republican Guard troops in the amount of training and the battle that they've seen.
The experience.
We will be fighting people who have fought, who have heard the sound of bullets whistling over their heads.
Mm-hmm.
They will be battle-hardened. They will be absolutely ruthless. And that's who we're going to have to deal with if we pull out. And again, I'm not saying pro, I'm not saying con. I'm more inclined to do the Glenn. Now, I'm actually kind of inclined to do what Bill O'Reilly suggested, simply because explosives, well, they degrade over time. While they're still good, while they're still got a good shelf life, you might as well go ahead and expend some ordnance, from the air and bomb the crap out of them, just so that they know that when they think they want to come face the United States, let them know what they would actually be facing. I actually don't have much problem with that.
Well,
but at the same time, I'm sort of with Glenn.
Here's what I think we need to do. Before we do anything, and I would encourage our leadership to pay close attention to this. Before we go acting on our own, be it bomb them back to the Stone Age or pull back, this entire nation needs to hit its knees immediately.
Yes.
And seek God's will on this.
Yeah, because frankly,
this has been going on for a couple of thousand years between these two groups.
Since 1137?
Glenn makes a good point. These people don't understand freedom. Some of them don't even want freedom. They've never experienced what we have here. And quite frankly, I don't think they're really ready for it, because they don't know how to handle it. You see, right now, what you're seeing is a free Iraq. They've been free to make their own decisions since we pulled out of there. And instead of looking to what's best for their nation and pulling together and saying, let's all experience freedom, they've taken this time to fight amongst themselves and say, well, we want to be free, but we don't want this part of the country to be free, or this particular religious sect to be free. Right now, we need to seek God's will on this, because after all, we were founded, and I've rankled a lot of feathers in the past few weeks saying that we are a Christian nation. Some of our closest friends have called me to task for that. How dare you say that we are a Christian nation? Well, whether you like it or not, I've been reading a lot about what our founders truly intended. They did intend for this to be a Christian nation. And if we are going to bear the name of Christ at all, it would really behoove us as a nation to seek His will and His guidance on this situation before we take a single step. And if our leadership isn't going to do that, then we as a people need to do that on their behalf. It's called intercessory prayer.
Every day, I pray for our family, I pray for our church, I pray for our community, and I pray for our country. And you know what I pray for? I used to pray for people like Barack and Michelle, that they just go to church, but obviously I can't tell from their actions that they're Christians. I used to pray that the Lord would soften their hearts. I've changed. I've started to pray that God will confound the enemies of America.
Yeah.
That if their hearts are already hardened against Him. And it seems like a lot of the people, not just the President and the First Lady here, I'm talking about the White House and Capitol Hill, most of them. Now, I know there's some good Christians on Capitol Hill. Louis Gohmert, I think, is the real deal. I pray that God will strengthen those who are faithful and confound the enemies of the faithful within our borders. That's the best I know I can do, man.
Well,
and then I pray that God's will, no matter what it is, will be done on earth just like He planned for it to be in heaven. Because you and I are just a couple rednecks from Alabama.
Well,
and
that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Is to pray that God's will be done. But we have got to do it as a nation.
And
Marty and Casey cannot pray this nation out of this hole by ourselves.
No, we certainly cannot.
This is, the handful of listeners that we got. All of us pulled together. We can't do it all by ourselves. This is the time of our nation's history where we go to everyone we know and incite them to prayer. Look, this stuff is... I actually heard somebody over the weekend, I didn't hear it, I read it, make the accusation that prayer is senseless. It's useless. They actually get mad when somebody says, I'll pray for you. And they get offended at someone saying, I'll pray for you. That's all I can do. As if that is not the greatest weapon in our quiver.
Man, it's all we got.
It's better than all we got. It is our ultimate weapon to fight this battle right now.
Well, all through the Bible, and we always close the show out with a verse, it acknowledges God for who He is. That's really, when you read all the Old Testament prophets, when God was, getting ready to let Israel have it, let them reap what they've sown, what He kept asking over and over again, hey, remember, I'm God. We're not asking for, Marty and I aren't asking for Sharia law. We're not asking for Christian Sharia. We're not asking for you to pray, for some kind of Christian form of Sharia law. Just get down on your knees and acknowledge God for who He is.
And I will do that right now. I pray right now. God, please, let your will be done for this country. Soften our nation's heart. Call us back to you. Give us the chance to bear fruit for you. Please allow us as a nation to be that light on a hill that all nations can look to and know that you are God and you are in control and we are your children. And I ask that in Jesus' name. The Bible teaches that where two or more are gathered in my name, I will hear them. I know there's more than just me and Casey listening to right now. I know that there's more than 3 or 4 people that will hear this within the coming week. That verse that we close out with every show, I've turned that into my prayer. That we as a nation that call ourselves by Christ's name, that we will humble ourselves. One of the things that I got so mad when President Obama went on his apology tour. But we as a nation do need to humble ourselves just a little bit and realize we didn't get here by ourselves. Now, we got in this mess all by ourselves.
Yeah. See, yeah, that's my point.
But we can't get out of it by ourselves.
No, we're good as a people. We're really good at messing things up, but we stink at putting the pieces back together again. And that's when we need help.
But you know, de Tocqueville was right when he said, America is great because America is good. We are a good people, but we have steered off the path mightily. We might have gotten in this mess by ourselves, but we're never going to get out of it by ourselves. It is going to take a power far, far greater than any of us have ever known or seen. And if there was ever a time for God to reveal himself to a nation, it is now. Because if we can come out of this better than we were when we went in it, it can only be God. Only God can do this. Because we, as a nation, are not strong enough. Don't forget these words. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. God, please heal our land.
Amen.
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Good night, y'all.
Please be good to each other.
Love.